Eric stood at the edge of the grand hall, surrounded by tall alien guards and glowing crystal walls. He felt small, but he kept his face calm. He was the only human sent to the planet Zeralon, chosen as a peace diplomat. The Kareth were a proud alien race with golden eyes, smooth silver skin, and long curved horns. Their queen, Valera, sat on a tall throne made of stone and light. She looked strong, beautiful, and dangerous. It was supposed to be a quiet meeting. The council was gathered to discuss trade routes between Earth and Zyrellon. Eric had prepared his speech carefully, hoping to impress. But everything changed the moment the queen's infant daughter started crying. The sound echoed through the chamber. It wasn't like a human baby's cry, it was sharper, deeper, and filled with strange energy. Guards flinched. The council members shifted uncomfortably. The queen's face tightened. She whispered something to her nurse, who tried rocking the baby, but nothing helped. The child's cry grew louder. Small objects on the table began to shake. One crystal vase cracked. A few guards touched their weapons. Eric looked around and realized something strange. Everyone looked afraid. Queen Valera stood, trying to soothe her daughter herself. She held the child close and sang in a soft, alien tone. Still, the baby screamed. Her voice was shaking the walls now. The queen sighed and spoke in a tired voice. "If anyone in this hall can calm my child," she said, her voice full of stress, "I will marry them." Kareth tradition honors such a vow. Everyone froze. There was silence for a long moment. Then a few nervous chuckles. No one took her words seriously. After all, no one could calm a Kareth baby, not even its own mother, and surely not a human. But Eric stepped forward. He didn't know what made him move. Maybe it was the sound of pain in the baby's cries. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it was because for a moment he didn't see an alien queen or a galactic empire. He just saw a tired mother and a scared child. He walked slowly toward the queen. The guards raised their weapons, but Valera held up her hand. Her golden eyes watched him carefully. Eric stopped in front of her. "May I?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Eric reached out his arms. The queen gently placed the baby into them. She was small, warm, and trembling. Her skin shimmered, like soft metal. Eric held her close to his chest, rocking gently. He whispered softly, just like he had done when babysitting his sister's child years ago. "It's okay, you're safe." The crying stopped. The silence hit the room like thunder. Everyone stared at Eric, mouths open. The baby let out a tiny sound, like a purr, and closed her golden eyes. She fell asleep in his arms. Eric looked up. Grin Valera was speechless. He gently handed the baby back to her. The queen held her daughter and looked down, as if unsure what had just happened. "How?" she whispered. "How did you do that?" "I don't know," Eric said honestly. "Maybe she just needed calm energy. No fear." The queen nodded. Slowly, the council still sat frozen in place. The tension in the room was broken, but something deeper had begun. "You have answered my challenge," she said, her voice quiet, and the promise was witnessed. Eric blinked. "You were serious?" "Kareth's law does not allow false promises," she replied, "especially when spoken during a royal meeting." Eric's heart skipped. Did that mean she really had to marry him now? Before he could speak, the queen raised her hand. "We will." "Speak in private," she said. The guards guided the council out of the hall. The glowing walls dimmed. Only the queen, her baby, and Eric remained. She walked over to a smaller garden chamber. Eric followed. Soft lights glowed along the trees. Strange flowers opened as they passed. The baby still slept in the queen's arms. Queen Valera turned to him. "I did not expect you to succeed," she said. "No one has ever calmed her, not even our finest healers." Eric sat on a stone bench. "I didn't plan to. I just saw a baby in pain." She nodded. "Means something to my people. Ancient laws bind me to my word. So you really have to marry me?" She looked at him carefully. "Yes, but there is time. We can explore what this bond means before anything is decided." I wish to understand why she trusts you. Eric felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. He came to this planet to sign a treaty. Now he was tied to a queen, and her child slept peacefully because of him. He looked at the baby. What's her name? Zalari, the queen said softly. It means light of the dawn. Eric smiled. She's strong. The queen looked at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time since he arrived on Xyrelon, she smiled back, and in that quiet alien garden, under glowing trees and silent stars, something rare was born. Trust. The next day began with soft sunlight falling over the shining towers of Xyrelon. Eric woke in his guest chamber, still unsure if yesterday had been a dream, but the gentle knock on the door reminded him it was all real. A royal guard stood outside, tall and serious, and said, Queen Valera requests your presence in the garden. Eric followed the guard, feeling nervous. Yesterday, he had held the royal baby and stopped her from crying. Now the queen wanted to talk again. This time, not just about the child, the garden was peaceful. Glowing flowers moved slightly in the breeze. Queen Valera stood near a crystal fountain, holding baby Zalari in her arms. She looked calm, but thoughtful. Good morning, human, she said softly. You slept well? Yes, Your Majesty. Eric said, thank you. She gestured for him to sit on a stone bench nearby. Today, I wish to speak honestly with no guards, no titles, just as two people. Eric nodded. I'd like that. She handed him the baby again. Zalari opened. Her golden eyes looked up at him and gave a tiny sound like a giggle. She reached out and touched his nose. She likes you, Valera said with a small smile. I still don't understand why, Eric said, gently rocking her. I've never even held an alien baby before yesterday. Zalari is not like most children, the queen said. Kareth babies are born with high emotion sense. They feel more than others fear, anger, sadness, even when no one speaks it. So, she felt my emotions, Eric asked. Yes, Valera said. And yours were calm, kind, full of peace. Most in my court fear her. Even her own nurse worries about touching her when she cries. Eric looked at the small child in his arms. That's really sad. She is my only child, Valera said, her voice soft. After many years of war, I lost much. Friends, family. I thought I had to become cold, strong. But when she cries, I feel helpless. There was silence for a moment. The sound of water trickling from the fountain filled the space between them. Then you came, she continued. A stranger, human. And somehow, she trusted you. Eric didn't know what to say. He had come here to help build a trade deal. He never expected to be holding a royal baby or talking about emotions with a queen, about the promise, finally said. Don't want to cause problems? If the marriage vow is too much, I understand. Valera shook her head. Our law is clear. Made a promise in front of witnesses, but it does not mean we must rush. I want to know you, understand this bond between you and my daughter. Nodded. I think that's fair. So I ask this, she said. Would you agree to stay in the palace? To learn our ways? To spend time with Zalari and me? Eric looked at her. Yes, I'll stay. Over the next few days, Eric was given new clothes, soft robes in Kareth colors, with symbols of peace stitched into the sleeves. Watched their dances. Listened to music made with glowing strings and soft drums. He tried the food, which looked strange but tasted fresh and warm. Most importantly, spent time with Zalari. He learned how to carry her the Kareth way, sang to her with simple earth lullabies. When she fussed, he'd hum softly and rub her back. Guards would stop and stare as they passed by this human, would become the royal baby's favorite. Some nobles whispered behind closed doors. He is not one of us, they said. Should not be near the queen. But others watched and stayed quiet. They saw something they couldn't explain. A baby who cried for no one, smiling in the arms of a human. Queen Valera often joined them. She asked questions about Earth. Eric told her about blue oceans, tall cities, old books, and how humans played music in the rain. She listened with interest. In return, she told him about her home, about the great sky temples, her peoples. Ancient songs and the stars they once traveled before war slowed them down. One night as they walked in the moon garden, she said, "You are not what I expected, Eric." "I'm not sure I know what to expect either," he said. I didn't think peace talks would lead to bedtime stories. She laughed softly. It was the first time Eric heard her laugh, and it felt like something rare. "Do you miss Earth?" she asked. "Sometimes," he replied, "but lately. This place feels less like a mission and more like a new beginning." Zalari let out a small yawn and curled up against him. Valera looked at the scene, then reached out and gently brushed her fingers along her daughter's cheek. "I do not know what the future holds," the Queen said. "I believe it changed the moment you stepped forward." Eric nodded. "Maybe. For all of us." Above them, stars shimmered across the night sky, and somewhere deep inside the palace, something ancient stirred an old tradition, waking to new hope. Eric's days in the royal palace began to change. He was no longer just a visitor from Earth. He was seen as someone important, someone close to the Queen and her child. And with that new role came new duties Queen Valera had him assigned. A personal tutor named Orion, an old Kareth scholar with long white robes and deep eyes. Orion had served in the palace for more than 50 years. He didn't smile much, but he respected the Queen's decision and accepted Eric as his student. "You must learn our history. Customs, language, signs, and sacred laws," Orion said. "We are to stand beside the Queen of In as a friend. You must carry honor," Eric agreed. Every morning, he studied ancient Kareth writings, learned the meanings behind their symbols, and trained in their royal etiquette. He learned how to greet warriors, how to walk during formal events, and how to stand when speaking to the council. It wasn't easy. Their movements were slow and exact, and one wrong gesture could be seen as disrespect. But Eric worked hard. He didn't want to embarrass the Queen or her daughter. In the afternoons, he spent time with baby Zalari. She grew more active each day, now grabbing shiny objects and trying to crawl. She liked to pull on his sleeves and laugh when he made funny faces. Her energy was strong, but she stayed calm around Eric. The royal nurses often watched in silence. Many of them had tried and failed to calm the baby before. But now she giggled and reached for Eric whenever she saw him. Queen Valera noticed the change. During evening walks, she spoke more openly with him. "Do you know what the nobles call you?" she asked one night. Eric raised a brow. "Something good, I hope." She smiled. "They whisper that you are the silent bond. It means someone whose actions speak louder than titles." "I guess that's better than strange human with a baby," Eric joked. Valera laughed gently. "Many of them doubted you. But now they see Zalari's peace, and they're starting to wonder if fate chose you." "I never believed in fate," he said, "but meeting her, meeting you, maybe I'm starting to." As weeks passed, Eric was invited to official events. He stood near the Queen during speeches, walked beside her during royal tours, and even joined her at a feast with other species ambassadors. He remained quiet most of the time, but people noticed his calm presence. One day, during a training session, Orion said something unexpected. "You are learning fast," the old scholar said. "But knowledge is not enough. The Kareth respect strength not in muscle, but in spirit. You must show them courage." Eric tilted his head. "How do I do that?" "You already have," Orion replied. "You faced the Queen's crying child when no one else dared, and you held her without fear. That is the beginning of real strength." But not everyone was pleased with Eric's growing presence. A high noble named Thurvok had been watching from the shadows. He was once a favorite advisor to the Queen, now replaced in many meetings by the quiet human. He believed Eric was a threat not only to Kareth honor but to his own power. "The human must not remain," Thurvok hissed to his allies. "He is changing her, weakening her." "But the child loves him," another noble whispered. "Then we remove him, or make him fall." Soon, strange things began to happen. Eric's robes went missing before a royal dinner. Sour fruit was added to his food. And once during a ceremony, someone loosened the floor tile he stood on, making him trip before the council. But each time, Eric remained calm. He helped fix the problem, apologized politely, never pointed fingers. Queen Valera began to suspect someone was trying to make him look foolish, spoke to her guards quietly and ordered them to investigate in secret. Then, one evening, as Eric walked alone in the garden, he saw something strange. A servant rushed past him, looking frightened. Then came a sound like a whisper in the wind. He followed it to a hidden hallway near the old archives. There he saw two nobles whispering, and handing over a small device. "We sabotaged the crystal core during the ceremony," one said. "It will cause panic. When they blame the human, the queen will have no choice." Eric stepped back quietly, heart pounding. The next morning, he went straight to Queen Valera and told her what he saw. She listened carefully, then gave a single order to her captain: watch them, not act until the right moment. On the night of the next public event, hundreds of Kareth gathered in the main hall. The queen was to present a gift to a visiting species. Eric stood beside her, holding Zalari, who now had a small ceremonial ribbon tied around her waist. As the queen began her speech, a flash of red light appeared at the crystal base of the hall. People gasped before panic could spread. Royal guards moved in. The two nobles were grabbed and forced to the floor. Sabotage device was found hidden beneath a broken panel. Queen Valera's voice was steady. "Let all witness this. Betrayal does not wear the face of a stranger. It hides behind false pride." The crowd cheered. Eyes turned to Eric, who remained still, holding the child that had once shaken the palace with her cries. In that moment, many saw not a foreigner, but someone who had quietly become part of their future. After the failed sabotage, the mood inside the palace shifted. Whispers about the human turned into quiet respect. Some nobles still didn't trust Eric, but they could no longer deny what they had seen. He had warned the queen of danger, had protected her child, and he had stood calm in front of chaos. Queen Valera called for a private gathering with her closest council members. Eric was invited too. He sat beside the queen, not as a guest anymore, but as someone the court could not ignore. "The traitors have been judged," Valera said firmly. "But this palace needs more than punishment. It needs healing." She looked around the room, her eyes sharp and steady. "Eric has shown more loyalty than many of you. He stood by my daughter without fear, and he warned me of danger without asking for reward." A few nobles lowered their eyes. "I will not force this court to accept him," she continued. "But I will not hide my trust in him either." Orion, the wise old scholar, nodded in support. "Strength lies in action. The human has passed every test without lifting a weapon." After the meeting, Eric walked with Valera in the quiet halls of the palace. Baby Zalari was in her nurse's arms, already asleep. "You didn't have to defend me like that," Eric said softly. "You didn't have to protect us either," Valera replied. They stopped near the royal balcony. From there, the city of Ziralin glowed in the night, its towers like stars touching the sky. "This world has changed," she said. "After the wars, after the pain, I thought I could never let someone close again, not even my own people. But you didn't come with power, you came with patience." Eric leaned on the balcony railing. "I didn't plan any of this. I just followed my heart." Valera looked at him quietly for a moment, then said, "Tomorrow we leave the palace." "What?" Eric blinked. "You've seen court life?" She said, "But there is more to our world than golden walls. You truly want to understand Kareth, I must see where I came from." He traveled the next morning in a quiet aircraft, flying above silver forests and glowing rivers. The ship landed in a rocky valley, where the wind hummed through tall crystal trees. It was peaceful, untouched. "This is where I trained as a warrior," Valera said, stepping out.
"How long before I became queen?"
She led Eric through a narrow path. Birds with featherless wings flew above them. The air was fresh. The ground sparkled with soft lights beneath their boots. They reached a small house made of smooth stone. An old woman stood at the doorway, her silver eyes kind and sharp. "My teacher," Valera said with respect. The woman nodded at Eric. "So this is the one who made the stars cry less?" Eric smiled shyly. "I guess that's one way to say it." They stayed there for 2 days. The Queen and Eric helped gather wood, cook meals, and sit around the fire under the stars. There was no court, no guards, no pressure. Just calm nights, shared stories, and laughter from the old days. On the second night, the teacher told a tale from the past. She spoke of a Kareth queen who once fell in love with someone not of their kind. The union had faced doubt but brought peace to many tribes. As she spoke, Valera and Eric sat side by side. A soft wind moved through the valley as the queen turned to him. "Eric," she said gently, "I made a promise that day when you calmed Zellerie. At first it felt like a duty. Now it feels like something else." He looked at her, his heart calm but full. "I didn't come here looking for love," he said, "but maybe I found something better, someone I want to stand beside, not because of a law, but because of who she is." She smiled, not the royal smile of a queen, but something warmer. "Then let us stop pretending we are still strangers." They didn't speak after that. They just sat in silence, watching the stars blink above them. The next morning, before returning to the palace, Valera walked with Eric down by the river. "There will be challenges," she said. "Some will still question us, but I no longer doubt this bond." Eric nodded. "Neither do I." "Then stand with me at the moonlight gathering," she said. "Not as a guest, not as a foreigner, but as my choice." "What is the moonlight gathering?" he asked. "Our most sacred event," she answered. "When the old spirits are honored and future paths are named, no outsider has ever been presented there." Eric swallowed. "Then I better wear something nice." They both laughed as they flew back to the city. Something had changed between them. Not just respect, not just trust, a quiet promise unspoken, but understood, and far above in the sky where stars moved slowly, even the galaxy itself seemed to pause, as if it too waited to see what would happen next. The moonlight gathering was just 3 days away. The palace grew busy with preparations. Long silver banners were placed across the walls. Glowing flowers from the crystal mountains were brought in, their petals changing colors with the light. Music halls were cleaned. Royal chefs worked day and night to prepare meals from every region of the Kareth lands. For most people, this was a time of celebration. But for Eric, it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. He had faced danger, studied royal customs, and even stood beside the queen in public. But this was different. This was ancient tradition seen by millions across the planet. And Queen Valera had asked him to stand with her not as a diplomat, but as her chosen one. His thoughts spun as he walked into the royal garden that morning. He found Queen Valera sitting beside the pond, baby Zellari resting on a blanket nearby, playing with smooth stones. "You look worried," Valera said, not even turning. "I think I'm about to become the most talked about human in the galaxy." Eric replied. "You already are," she said with a smile. He sat beside her. "I keep wondering if I'm good enough. What if I embarrass you? What if your people think I don't deserve to be there?" The queen turned to him, her eyes gentle, but firm. "You earned this place, not by power, but by heart. You calmed the storm in my daughter when no one else could. You protected us without asking for anything. You listened, learned, and stayed even when others tried to remove you." She reached out and placed her hand on his. "You are not standing beside me because of a law. You are standing beside me because I choose you." Eric nodded slowly. Her words gave him peace. The day of the moonlight gathering arrived. The palace was filled with guests from across the galaxy. How many were tall and strong Kareth warriors. Others were nobles, dressed in glowing robes. Some were even leaders from other worlds, curious to witness this rare moment. The gathering was held in the Sky Temple, large open platform at the top of the tallest tower. The stars above could be seen clearly, and the moon's light poured. Across the stone floor, Queen Valera entered first, wearing her ceremonial armor light silver with golden lines shaped like the stars. Her horns were polished, and her eyes bright. Beside her walked Eric, dressed in royal robes designed just for him. They were simple but elegant, marked with the symbol of peace and unity. Gasps echoed across the platform. Some eyes were wide in surprise, Others narrowed with doubt. But no one spoke against it, not after all Eric had done. A tall priest stepped forward and raised his arms. The moonlight falls not on the past, he said, but on the path ahead. Tonight, the queen may name one to walk with her through the stars. Queen Valera stepped forward. Our history has been shaped by war, by fear, and by separation, she said. But I believe it is time for something new. I have chosen a bond not written in our books, but one written by action and truth. She turned toward Eric. You came from a distant world, with no army, no demands. You soothed the heart of my daughter. You listened when others spoke over me. You stood beside me even when danger grew near. I ask now, before the stars and my people, will you walk with me, not as a guest, but as my partner? The entire platform was silent. Eric took a breath. Then he stepped forward, placed his hand over his heart, and said clearly, I came here to build peace between our worlds. But I found something more. I found a place, a purpose, a family. Yes, I will walk with you. Baby Zalari clapped her tiny hands from the nurse's arms, making Minnie smile. The crowd gave a loud, respectful sound, half cheer, half chant. Old nobles nodded. Some warriors even bowed slightly. That night there was no crown, no ring, only the joining of hands beneath the moonlight after the ceremony. Queen Valera and Eric sat on the edge of the tower, watching the stars. Do you think your people will understand this? She asked. Maybe not all of them, he said. But they'll see what's possible. That two worlds can meet in peace, not by force, but by heart. She smiled. Then let this be the beginning. And it was. In the days that followed, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Some questioned it, others supported it, but all of them talked about it. The story of the human who calmed the alien queen's child and stood beside her. The moonlight became more than a rumor, it became a symbol. One small act of kindness had changed a world, and baby Zalari, now smiling more than ever, was no longer the child who cried alone. She was the child of hope, the light of the dawn. Weeks passed after the moonlight gathering, but the memory of that night stayed alive in every corner of Ziralon. Stories about the human and the queen traveled beyond the stars, reaching distant planets. Many still couldn't believe it. Others waited to see if the peace would last inside the palace. Life was quiet but not boring. Eric now lived in the East Wing, close to the Queen's chambers. His role had changed. He was no longer just a guest or a diplomat. Now he was something more. He helped manage daily matters in the court. He spoke with visiting leaders. And most of all, he spent time with baby Zalari. She was growing fast. Her legs were stronger, and she had started taking small steps, her arms wide for balance. The palace staff smiled every time she laughed. She used to cry for hours. Now she giggled every time Eric lifted her in the air. She's more active than ever, Eric said one morning, chasing after her down the hallway. Queen Valera stood nearby, arms crossed, and a soft smile on her face. She has your curiosity, she said. Or maybe just your stubbornness, Eric teased. They both laughed. Life wasn't perfect. Not everyone accepted the bond between human and queen. A few council members still questioned it. One even refused to show up to meetings, saying, a human cannot guide our people. But those voices grew fewer. Because the people saw the change Zalari smiling, Valera relaxed, the palace no longer under threat. One day, Queen Valera asked Eric to join her on a visit to a nearby spaceport. It was one of the largest on Ziralon, where ships came and went from across the stars. When they arrived, workers stopped to bow. Others waved, smiling at Eric as if he had always belonged. They entered a large hall where schoolchildren were gathered. They stared wide-eyed as the queen walked in, but they gasped when they saw Eric holding Zalari in his arms. That's the human. One child whispered loudly. Queen Valera stepped forward and began to speak. Years ago, we looked at the stars and saw only danger. Now, we look again, and we see something else. We see friendship, unity, and a future shaped not by fear, but By care, she turned to Eric and said, "Will you say something?" Eric stepped forward, heart beating fast. The children watched him with big, hopeful eyes. "I came here thinking I was alone," he said softly. "I didn't know your ways. I didn't know your language. And I didn't think I would be accepted. But then I met a baby who needed comfort, and everything changed." He looked at Zellery, who was playing with his collar. "Sometimes the smallest hand can open the biggest door. And I'm grateful every day that I walked through it." The children clapped. One even ran up to hand him a drawing, 3 stick figures, the queen, the human, and the smiling baby. Back at the palace, Eric placed the drawing on his chamber wall. He stared at it for a long time. It reminded him how far he had come. That evening, Queen Valera invited him to the royal garden once more. The sky above was dark blue, stars blinking gently. Glowing insects danced above the plants. "I have been thinking," she said, holding a small bowl of soft fruit. "About what?" Eric asked, sitting beside her. "About the future," she said. "The bond we started is more than just tradition. It means something now. To me, to Zalari, and to our people." Eric nodded. "It means something to me too." Said slowly, "I ask not out of law, but from my heart. Will you share this life with me? Not just as a partner in peace, but as my husband?" For a moment, Eric couldn't speak. His breath caught. He had always thought of this place as another mission, another step in human diplomacy. But now, it felt like home. A real home. He smiled. "Yes. Not because of a promise, but because I want to." They shared no ceremony that night. No cheers, no crown. Just 2 souls beneath the stars, choosing each other in the quiet of the garden. The next day, the news was shared across the empire. The alien queen and the human were not just partners in peace, they were partners in life. Some were shocked, others joyful. But everyone understood it was real. And as the galaxy watched, something deeper began to change. Other leaders reached out to Ziralon, curious about the human way of thinking. Ships from Earth started visiting more often. Kareth children learned human stories. Human children listened to Kareth songs. Baby Zellerine, now laughing, walking, and speaking small words, was seen not just as a royal child, but as a symbol of what 2 worlds could become when fear is replaced with trust. And so, the story of the man who calmed the queen's baby became more than a tale. It became a beginning.